Hi Dandelions. I decided to make a second video, but I wasn't really sure, what the plan would be for it necessarily. I just thought I would talk a little bit about my Book of Mirrors, which is obviously like my spiritual journal. This is my current Book of Mirrors. I've had this one for quite a while now. It's quite a scrappy, old, hardback kind of book. I've had it for ages and I kind of reclaimed it as a Book of Mirrors, and it's got kind of a phonology head on it, kind of thing. And this is where a lot of my spiritual stuff goes. I also do have a Book of Shadows, your standard shop bought Book of Shadows, which I love for the Silver Pentacle. I bought this in Glastonbury, which anyone in the UK and probably quite a few people who don't live in the UK will know is a very witchy place to be. It's like the big Harry Potter shop. If you want to go Harry Potter shopping, you go there and you can go into shops that have like loads and loads of herbs with their healing properties, like in glass jars on shelves. You can get wands, you can get cloaks for ritual, you can buy all kinds of things like that. There are many bookshops. I think there's a bookshop there called the Mustard Seed. Maybe that's somewhere in Cornwall. I don't know, I get a lot of the bookshops mixed up, but whenever I go down there, there are key ones that I kind of know where they are and I have to go there and spend my rent. Because books for me are the biggest spiritual kind of spend, I guess, and I do understand that why there are lots of videos around about how it's not important to spend money to achieve your spiritual pursuits, and I totally agree with that. However, I am a magpie, so that's kind of where the jewelry thing comes in. But with books, I think that's where most of my money has been spent in terms of spiritual things, things that I have to kind of further my spiritual exploration. I would say books are the key things that I own. And in the Mustard Seed in Glastonbury, I bought quite a lot of cool books about witchcraft and shamanism and stuff. And I never really have a clear idea what I want when I go in. I just follow my nose and I kind of select what works for me. The Book of Shadows is where I place kind of more official things. So I won't write contemplations in there and I won't kind of ramble on for ages in there. I'll either record a ritual in terms of what was used and what was done, or there are quite a lot of quotes in there and things like that, and kind of drawings and stuff. I have some poetry and things of that nature in there that I've written. So it's kind of more official things which I invest in as a form of worship or reverence in itself, I suppose you could say. And I will refer back to some of the things that I've written in my Book of Shadows during ritual. I also have a book of, well, I'm calling it a Book of Chaos, and I don't have that out at the moment because it's under a great big stack of books and magazines, but I'm slowly working on a Book of Chaos, which is basically really a spiritual manifesto of sorts, which is where I'm actually meting out what I believe, what I do in ritual, what ritual means to me, and where my magical path and my spiritual path has actually been and where it's brought me to. So it's actually kind of a book of confirmations, I suppose, and I am probably going to be interested in showcasing my Book of Chaos once it's done and talking a lot more about the different ideas that I have about magic from my perspective and different ways that I've branched out from what the traditional books will tell you and actually found my own ways of performing magic and performing ritual which very much fit in with me. So I probably will take you through some of my Book of Chaos once it's completed, so I'm quite excited about that. But that book, the Book of Chaos, is going to be of vital importance to me. I feel that I'm really working up towards something that's going to be a long-standing point of reference for me, and I'm very excited about everything that I'm putting in there. I'm excited about the way it's coming together, so I would like to show you guys that. The Book of Shadows is just for me, but I'm not saying it's because there's like loads of incredible secrets in there or anything that I feel unable to share because it gives me some handle of superiority. It's just I think some things are for the ritual space and that's kind of where they should stay. The Book of Mirrors is obviously like a spiritual diary of sorts, and I haven't actually looked in there to actually decide what I'm going to talk about from it. I just thought that I would go through and maybe just have a kind of a vlog kind of spiritual chit chat with you, I suppose, about certain things that will come up. This is the first page. It's the tree and the roots with the stars and stuff. I've got Einstein in there with a little quote that says, I believe in Spinoza's God, which I do. I believe in pantheism. I have a few different things in the opening. I have a quote by Aleister Crowley, in the front that says, "True will should spring, a fountain of light from within, and flow unchecked, seething with love, into the ocean of life," which is just super cool. So I love that. The first thing in my current Book of Mirrors is the planning of an autumn equinox ritual for 2011. And that's quite exciting because I've actually done it in a really formulaic fashion where I've written about the preparation, what I'm going to do to prepare for ritual, the altar contents, the order of business, I guess you could say, the way that I want to cast a circle, particularly for this ritual that I was doing, the visualization that I was going to be doing, and then the opening equinox dedication, which I always do, and I write from scratch. I write it from the heart, and I plan for it to be read in the circle at the time. And then I have an address to hell. I think this was the first time, in fact, that I actually addressed hell in the circle and kind of evoked her spirit and her archetype to me while I was performing working. So that is really important to me, I guess. I'm just wondering if I can read it. I think I probably will. I think I'll read it for you. How's that? So you don't get anything from the Book of Shadows, but I guess I will read a few things from the Book of Mirrors for you. I think it would be a nice gesture. So I will read my address to Hell. Hell, you are the queen of the lowest world. From the womb to the tomb, you will be at my shoulder. You are with me now. You allow travellers to approach the gate and commune with the dead. You walk in your garden, the graveyard, and in your dark orchard where apples grow large, both bitter and delicious as life. You show me what is temporal. You are no respecter of power or position, no respecter of age or intelligence. You are the great leveller. You strip all back to its obvious end. You take all of your subjects with equal mercy. You are steadfast, you are dutiful, you show integrity in your work, you are just, and you are the protector of that law of nature most feared in my realm. You have taught me never to attempt to avert you, but to find you beautiful, both in the bones and in the flesh. When I touch the earth, I commune with you. In the cemetery, I commune with you. In my nightmares and dreams, I commune with you. I have loved you the longest, for you have fed me the most. Your energy, more than any other, has made me the pagan I wish to be. Keep me unafraid, keep me longing and incredulous, keep me grateful and accepting, keep me wise and stoical. From the hiss of the rivers to the breath of a moth, your presence is a black thread binding all, as your brother binds the world together with his body. If your beauty brings me tears, the salt is the salt of grief, which you hold in your arms as food for the dead. If your face tells me the story of life, you look upon me with a wisdom so clear that I could never fear the end again. I will fulfill my cycle at the time and place of your choosing, because there is no other path, and I will respect and love your sacred judgment. That is my address to hell for 2011. And then I've got my notes about rune work, intentions and thoughts for the ritual, my plan for the offering to hell, thanking hell, closing the circle, all that kind of thing. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff in here. There are things that I say during every ritual. There's two things, for example, that I say once when I'm opening the circle and once when I'm closing it. And those things that I say, those two things that I say to confirm the opening and closing of a sacred space, are very dear to my heart. In fact, I told my boyfriend recently what they were, and he was so happy to be privy to this information that he was overwhelmed by it and gave me a hug, because I think he understands that there is a lot of stuff that witches feel that they hold back, either because it imbibes those secret things with power, or because it's actually not relevant outside of the creation and destruction of sacred space. So I think it's almost as though we live in another world for that time, and time itself becomes different during that period of time in which we are performing our ritual workings and such. So I think a lot of the time we just don't associate some of the things we do entirely with this realm, because sacred space creates that vacuum that we require in order to generate energy in the way we wish to and manifest the intent we wish to manifest. So when you give out some of those bits of information to those that you love, or to those who are very interested in your pathway or what you're doing, I think it's a gift, and I think it's something that should be taken as such. Let's have a look. I've got some notes about rune work here. I've got my plan for how to draw runes or how to throw runes, which is what I do. I don't normally select them from the bag. I actually place a cloth out which has the elements and the cardinal directions on it, and I actually scatter the runes and see where they actually end up. And where they're aspected in terms of the cardinal directions is how I'll read them. So if they end up in the area of water, they'll be about the emotional spectrum and spirituality. If they end up in the fire direction, then it will be about creation and destruction. It will be about passion and motivation, whatever. So I've got that kind of planned out. I've got lots of contemplations, lots of kind of rambling on, which is very helpful for me because I find often I've been writing since I could. In fact, before I knew the alphabet, my mum told me that I used to pretend to write. When I was like 2 years old, I used to get pieces of paper and just do like scribbles, horizontal scribbles on them. And my mum would say, "What are you doing, Kellyanne?" And I'd say, "I'm writing." And she'd think, "Okay, but you can't. You don't know the alphabet yet." So I think that writing was always something that was actually just very therapeutic for me. It was something that made me feel liberated and free and fresh. So for me, even writing a shopping list is very much an act of cleansing, in a sense. I just feel so incredible about it. I don't think that I often care what I'm writing. I just sometimes need to write. It's just the feeling that it gives me. So there's lots of contemplations, lots of plans that I'm making, different things that I have done or that I'm considering doing. I've got a piece here called Performing Ritual as a Pantheist, and talking about what ritual is and what it can be used for when it's not actually used to petition or necessarily worship personified deity. Because of course, as pantheists, we believe that we ourselves are also divine. So when we're using ritual, we're using it to kind of address the divinity within as well as without, and we're using it to address the interconnectedness of all things. So, we don't petition necessarily. I do make offerings to personified deities, but again, I follow the psychological model. So for me, it's not actually about petitioning to a god or goddess, it's about associating their archetype with the particular part of the energy of the universe with which I'm attempting to get in touch. So it's actually a psychological premise that I'm using. And I'm using very much the idea that these figures, these archetypes, these ideas that have come from different cultures and are dressed up in different guises can tap us in more literally to the forms of energy that we're trying to work with, to the aspects of nature that we're trying to get in touch with. I think the human imagination is very much a real realm. I don't think it should be denigrated. And I think that those ideas and images that have stood the test of time in the human imagination, so for example, systems of mythology, pantheons, deities, are very powerful tools for me in ritual and in magical working. So I will always focus on personified deity, but it will be in the way I see it. It will be in terms of Jungian archetype theory and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that hell is any less important to me whatsoever. And I do talk in my pantheism series, which I made when I very first opened this channel, about how some people are confused by pantheists who value personified deity or who include personified deity. And I very clearly explain why a lot of us do that, and why it actually does make sense, and why you can be other things aside from hard polytheist and still very much get in touch with aspects of personified deity. So I'm basically writing about performing ritual as a pantheist, and I've got notes here like expressing reverence, strengthening understanding, seeing life as part of nature and humanity and not divorced from it, strengthening belief, celebrating belief, providing support and perspective in times of doubt or stress, and also as a form of therapy. They would be some of my key reasons why a pantheist would perform ritual. I have a quote here from Paul Harrison, who I'm a little bit hot and cold with as a pantheist, which I also explain in my pantheism series, so I won't go over it here, but I've got a quote from him that says, "Regardless of the religion, there are echoes among the diverse accounts of mystic experience. The central experience is one of overcoming the gap between self and unity. It is an experience often accompanied with ecstasy and a sense of being in contact with ultimate reality." So I guess I liked that, and I guess I thought that that made sense. Sunday 27th of May 2012, I've written about Rereading Listening People Speaking Earth by Graham Harvey. Often I reread very basic pagan texts, or even texts that are designed for people who are not pagan and wish to explore it from an outside perspective. The reason that I do that, even though I've obviously been pagan for over 10 years, is to simplify my practice and to simplify my thought processes, because things can get very, very chaotic and complex. I like to go down a hell of a lot of different routes, and I often kind of forget where I started. I'm not saying that I forget the central laws and ideas of paganism, because of course I can't at this point, it's stuck in there. But I do sometimes feel that in order to boil down and simplify and really work out where I'm standing currently and where I want to be, I sometimes need to strip everything back and go back to texts like Pagan Ways, or Listening People Speaking Earth, things that basically just boil stuff down to the roots and explain what heathenry is, what druidry is, what Wicca is, what's the difference between Wicca and witchcraft. I like to read over some of these key questions, not because I don't know the answers, but because I sometimes just like to go back to basics. I feel that it helps me to clarify what I'm doing, because often my mission can become a little bit tangled and I become a little bit confused myself about where exactly I'm planning to go. And a lot of my study by this point is quite advanced now. Like, for example, as I said in the My Path and Yours video, I'm going back to Jungian texts. I'm reading not only Jung but also Jungian analysts and stuff. I'm also exploring heavily some of the more complex aspects of chaos magic. I'm looking into things like the creation of servitors and magical entities, for example. So a lot of that kind of exploration, which is very in-depth and very dense, can kind of stray a lot from the initial seed of thought. And it's the initial seed of thought that I sometimes feel I need to come back to. So I like to do that every now and then. So I'm writing about that and that I'm re-exploring that. I then begin with the shadow work section of my my Book of Mirrors, which is great because I actually offer a 5,000 word shadow work tarot reading on my Etsy shop. I am planning on actually doing a video that explains more about my Etsy shop and about the readings that I sell on the Etsy shop. I'm really passionate about the Etsy shop. It's been open for quite a while now and I absolutely love it to pieces. When I log into that shop every day, I am happy. I just feel such a great energy emanating from the work that I do there and from the clients that I work with and their incredible journeys and the fact that they've permitted me to be a part of those journeys. And I really didn't feel that my purchase options would be even remotely complete if I didn't put together some kind of dedicated shadow work reading, because I talk so much about the importance of shadow work, the value of shadow work and the benefits of it. So I actually went about designing a 2-part shadow work course which I offer on the Etsy shop, and a few people have gone through part 1 of the shadow work course and found it to be incredibly clarifying for them in terms of ways to actually introduce shadow work to the issues that you're working through. So these notes are all of my original notes on the shadow work course that I actually designed. So a lot of quite like dark or kind of ambivalent imagery there. I've got the 4-quarter model by Jung, which is for the second part of the shadow work course, which is much more intense. Different archetypes that you can work with in shadow work. All my different ideas about shadow work is in there. I'll read you this this quote by Alice Barry, who's a shadow work therapist. I've put this in here. It says, "Shadow work has a culminative effect. Each piece of work builds on what went before. The more shadow work you do, the more you can be, the more you can see, the more you can feel, the more you can do." I truly believe that. I shouldn't have said culminative, I should have said cumulative, but I'm terrible with that word. Yeah, I've got some quotes by Robert A. Johnson, another Jungian analyst, talking about shamanic practices and stuff. I've got some writing about tools in here, just writing about how I feel about them, how I associate with them, and about the fact that I change them up quite a lot because I don't follow obviously kind of a strict Wiccan idea of things. So for me, tools will change over time. I do invest quite a lot of energy or importance into certain objects, but then I'll turn my attention to other objects. I'd like to talk, when my Chaos book is actually finished, my Book of Chaos, about things like art magic and trinket animation and things that I've actually formulated and worked on and built on with my own ideas, so that I can give you guys some other ideas for what you can do to branch out and actually get out of the magical box, I guess. For me, magic is all about ceasing to honour tradition for the sake of honouring tradition and instead finding things that work for you, mishmashing and placing your own passions and your own fascinations very much into the magical working or into the ritual space. For me, that makes the most sense, and I think I explained a lot about that in the My Kind of Magic video that I did, where when I look back on that video now, I think it actually looks kind of melancholy, but it's not supposed to be. I think I was just in a very pensive place at that point when I made that video, but it really was about breaking free of the restraints of tradition, or the restraints of the idea that one tradition should be favoured over another. I think it's really important for me to design a kind of origami magic of my own and to place in there everything that really matters to me. And I've done that on and off my whole life, but I never really realised that there were other people writing about it or talking about it until I came across chaos magic and Discordianism, and to an extent also the Church of the Subgenius and things like that, churches that are built around central ideas that could almost be seen as absurd or as lunacy. I love all that kind of thing because it really frees me and it makes me realise, in much the same way that people like William Burroughs and David Lynch made me realise that in fiction I could write what I wanted, that there are no rules. In magic, I feel like guys like Peter Carroll and Phil Hine helped me realise that, again, there were no rules. The rules are mine. It needs to come from my inner power. If it doesn't serve my inner power, then I'm not going to be able to use my inner power effectively. So I think there's a lot of writing about that in this book. There's also some writing here about vision questing for power animals and totem animals and stuff. So that's cool. I've written down a YouTube comment here. I don't know who wrote it, but it was underneath a witchy video. It just says YouTube comment underneath, so I'm going to read it. There's a picture there of some tools, and it says here, "A witch to me is someone who connects with nature, the universe, the elements, the sun and moon, anything and everything that exists, has existed or will, and uses it to harness power and self-enlightenment to grow and evolve into a more complete being." Oh, there we go. It does have the person who wrote it. Chloe Rose, YouTube comment. Apparently I read that YouTube comment and I loved it because I put it in my Book of Mirrors. I've got a list here of types of ritual. Worship, sabbat, esprit, protection, healing, dedication, devotional, meditation, journey, visualization, divination, celebration, prayer, rite of passage, blessing, release, summoning, glamour, channeling, astral projection, dream work, and path working are a list of some of the ritual types, and then I talk about different ways that I can utilise them or may wish to harness them. I've got even more here. Finding power animal, finding the shadow aspect, creating an astral altar, tarot ritual for themed guidance, devotional to patron deity, rituals to explore and commune with different archetypes, a funeral for fear, heart healing, home blessing, object blessings and cleansings, devotionals for ancestors, mental clarity, mind shifting and gestalt work, physical healing, protection, and psychometry. So I guess I've just read that out in case you wanted to pause and go through and write things down. If there are certain aspects of ritual or styles of ritual that you haven't thought of trying before, you might like to try your hand at them. I've got my notes for Samhain. Samhain for me is a hugely important festival. I believe obviously the Wheel of Life creates a balance, which is necessary. But I do feel that there are certain festivals that of course you're going to be more invested in and of course you're going to be more excited by. And I just love Samhain. Samhain is my favourite. So there's some notes here on Samhain and the different themes that it goes into. I've actually got here the geometry of the sectioned apple, which I cut out from a magazine which talks about the magical geometry of the apple, which I think I put in there because hell is popularly associated with apples and is supposed to have had apple orchards in her realm and things like that, and of course also an apple is the fruit of Samhain. So that's interesting. I have more plans for ritual in here. More notes about shadow work. And contemplations on silence, which goes on for some time. That was when I was really exploring ideas of what silence is and what it means in magic and ritual practices. I made a video about that when I very first started the channel actually, so it was something that I was considering. And then I've got some notes on the Witch's Pyramid, which again I've made a video about and which I feel kind of speaks to me of certain ethics or rules that can kind of be held up to a standard but are also kind of common sense or universal in a way. So I think it can have quite a poetic response from me, but also in a lot of ways it's just what I organically feel about magic and ritual. I think I read that out in my... Oh, here we go. I've got contemplations for Mabon or Mabon, however you wish to say it. I know there's some questions about how it should be said. Let's have a look. I've got plans for books that I need to buy, of course, as always. Notes on the moon's phases. So it's kind of a lot of people when they have a book of shadows, which they place, you know, you have books of shadows that you have a very formulaic way of doing it. So you'll put your witch's read or whatever it is you follow in the opening, and then you will have a kind of contents, a table of contents for how you want everything to go. So you might choose to write about divination in a certain part of the book. You'll have your elements, you'll have your herbs, you'll have different systems of mythology, and you'll go through as such. And then when you finish that Book of Shadows, many times people actually cross all of the information over into their new Book of Shadows. This to me seems like an incredibly stifling way of doing things. It's not a way that I've ever really felt that I wanted to do it. I'm kind of more of an organic kind of writer, and I will just write about what comes up and what's important to me at the time. So particularly with the Book of Mirrors, I actually am just going through and writing about things that really have taken my fancy, I suppose you could say. Like, I have 2 pages of notes on an interview with Phil Hine that I listened to, so that really interested me. I've got a quote here from Michael W. Ford, who wrote the Book of the Witch Moon, and it says, "The black art is not that of devil worship, but of hidden knowledge. The key to this lies in the depths of the subconscious, the will to explore and suggest, to destroy and create." I love that. I love that one. More notes and plans and things. And then I'm just going to read this one final thing by Neale Donald Walsch, who wrote Friendship with God. It says, "I believe we know at the highest level that we are all one. It is this supreme awareness that pulls us towards each other, and it is the ignoring of it that creates the deepest loneliness of the human heart and every misery of the human condition." I really like that. And then I begin on my chaos magic notes and things, because the Book of Chaos is actually being planned in a very, it's a way that invites very decorative making and selecting the pictures very carefully. I'm writing things very carefully. It's a book that's quite cared for and is going to be quite ceremonial in a sense. So a lot of the notes for my Book of Chaos are going in here, where it can be much more scrappy and it can be much more kind of wild and all over the place, so I can gather my thoughts before I actually go ahead and begin again with the Book of Chaos, which is sort of going to be quite a ceremonial, quite together kind of book, which I'm really excited about and happy to start exploring. And hopefully, as I said, when I'm finished, I can show you guys. So this has been more of a vloggy kind of exploration of me and my Book of Mirrors and a few different things that I've gone into, and I really hope you enjoyed my address to hell. And I've loved being a part of YouTube for the time that I have been, and I think it's time to get more witchy videos and witchy content out there, because that's really one of the main things that I love watching from you guys. So I think I should be definitely putting my own ideas in there as well and permitting all of you guys to watch. So I will think of some more things that I want to talk about, and I probably will show you a few more of my bits of spiritual stationery, as I like to call it, at some point. And if you guys have any questions or anything that you would like to know from me, I have been considering doing a get to know me tag, because I actually think that I've stayed very much on the point with this channel. That's what I've kind of been thinking, that I've stayed very much on the point with regard to spirituality, witchcraft, paganism. So actually, there are a lot of things about me that people here will know nothing about at all. And I suppose, you know, it is kind of one of those things that I figure I might explore at some point, other parts of my character, because once you've learned X amount about somebody's spiritual exploration, it might be kind of weird if other parts of the knowledge are kind of one-sided. So I suppose I might talk about other things that interest me. This channel is always going to be about spirituality and about self-development. That was the plan for it, and that's how I want it to stay. But I might do a get to know me tag or answer some questions if you guys have any, because I think that, you know, I'm always intrigued by different things regarding the different witches and pagans that I watch. So if you do have any questions, or you would like me to make videos about anything specific, or if you need more tarot stuff, there is more tarot stuff coming, but if you need more tarot stuff, let me know and I'll try to oblige you. Much love, people. Take care.